Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. It's all about the Inner Peace Counseling Center, and we're joined with our CEO and friend, Todd Malloy, who, of course, is here helping so many people, individuals, businesses, you name it. He does it. Todd, please say hello because your voice probably sounds better than mine.
Well, hello there. How are you? Thank you so very much, Jill, for having me. Always a pleasure to connect with you.
Same here. It's a pleasure to have you back with us today on this pre-Memorial Day weekend, really. Let's talk a little bit about, what you do, just a little recap for new listeners out there. So tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do as a life and business strategist, please.
Okay. Well, as a life and business strategist, I work with growth-minded individuals to help them achieve their goals. I work with people that have a passion and a desire to be successful and are looking for counseling to help them maneuver through work-life balance, through corporate politics, things of that nature, such that they can achieve their highest heights. I work with corporate professionals, CEOs. I work with professional athletes. I work with political figures and things of that nature to allow them to identify their strengths, their core wants and desires, and facilitate them achieving it, utilizing their own internal strengths, which ultimately leads to a profitable P&L, both personally and professionally.
Right. And, you say, given the combination of your personal, professional, spiritual, psychological training and experience as well, you're prepared really to offer a unique brand of service to so many people. What in particular today did you want to share with our listeners? Do you have something in mind?
Well, a lot of times when people think of coaches and things of that nature, they're looking at professional as athletes. They look at, corporate lawyers, things of that nature. Not many people look at it from, why would someone that's a psychotherapist, how would that benefit in being a life and business strategist? So I think that brings a unique talent, and I'd like to really discuss why it's important and the benefit to having a coach, an executive level coach that also has the psychotherapy background and training.
Wow.
So that's basically what I'd like to talk about today and the benefits of it. But also, if we have enough time, just to kind of share some tips, things that people can walk away with to help them on their success journey.
Beautiful. Well, let's get started. So why a life and business strategist that's also a psychotherapist? What are some of the benefits of that unique combination, Todd?
Well, most things, and I come from a background where my perception is everybody in the world is traumatized. We're all been impacted by life, not because of heinous things, not because of isms. It's the way we're reared in this country. When you're a kid, you're supposed to be seen and not heard. When you get a little older, if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. When you get a little older, you have to be politically correct. But who actually gives you permission to really connect to your own experience, value it, and give you permission to communicate it where people shift and adjust? But as a result of that, we create inner turmoil that's not always addressed. Now, reason being from a psychotherapy perspective is that I understand the underpinning of the psychological aspects, neurological, as opposed to more of a life coach or someone without the training. They're talking about more behavioral change of behavior, team building strategies, a quick step, one-step method. However, everything's not just learn a new pattern or behavior, because sometimes I can't learn the new pattern or behavior because there's some underpinning psychological dysfunction that I'm not aware of. I seem to be a hamster on a hamster wheel that keeps tripping over their feet. I think the best way to explain it would be to give an example.
Please. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Okay. So, for example, I was working with a young woman by the name of Rebecca. She's an IT executive. Now, in the midst of working with her, she did not treat people well, but because she was very good at what she did, the boss said, hey, the CEO said, she's fine. She's making us a lot of money. We're going to tolerate the nuances. So then they say, okay, she did it one time where a subordinate came in and asked for a signature in the middle of a meeting. And she berated the person so badly that they said, we got to take care of this. So they give her a life coach. They talk about team building, the appropriate behaviors. And even though she was making progress, her dysfunction kind of just kept shifting to other areas. So, for example, after about 3 years, they said she's fine. They maneuver her through the process. Her boss leaves. They give her a promotion. But once she gets a promotion, she goes back to the grandiose behaviors of not treating the subordinates properly. And she got 6 months later, she got identified as theoretically embezzling money from the corporation. So then the CEO said, there's more going on than what we think. They reached out to me to say, hey, this is a valued employee. We got to understand what's going on, because obviously those of us that do business recognize to fire someone costs a whole lot of money to bring people back up the learning curve.
True.
So in working with her, I understood and identified that she had a very severe narcissistic personality disorder.
Wow.
Which a lot of leaders and executives have, which behavioral science and so forth, and just do these 1, 2, 3 steps don't necessarily work with this type of personality. That's actually a clinical diagnosis, and that can't actually be changed, but can be moderated with the proper tools and techniques. So in the midst of that, understanding the personality type, I was able to kind of work with her and modify the behaviors and give her an understanding, because one of the important things about working with someone with a psychological background is a difference between a problemed executive and an executive with a problem. But without the psychological training, you can't identify that. And it's not just for executives, it's for people. And we find ourselves on a hamster wheel, tripping over our feet that's always the same way. We can't seem to stop this spiral, stop this cycle. Because there's a psychological underpinning that's going around that typically behaviors won't, that people without our training can identify.
Interesting.
I think that's the best way. Again, most importantly, someone with a psychotherapy background can identify whether it's just a simple problem or more deeper rooted. And without the psychological training, how could you understand the underpinning that is causing the stumble, such that, again, they can actually achieve the goal? So, because think about it, everybody's on a growth-minded trajectory.
Yeah.
No matter where you are in life, but we all come across stumbling blocks. But it's to understand where the stumbling blocks are, such that we can put in the right measures, such that you can continue the forward trajectory.
Perfect. Beautifully said. Thank you. No,
Well,
wow.
thank you.
So just curious, someone with a narcissistic personality, let me just ask you this. I get confused because there's people who have narcissistic ways, some who aren't. Now, can you explain exactly what a narcissist is? And
a narcissist is basically someone, the high achiever, maybe even an overachiever, but they tend to regulate people that they think are beneath them and have no regard for them.
Okay. So they have this real grandiose personality.
Correct.
Okay.
Right. It's extremely grandiose, and even to the level of which, if there are rules that they don't agree with, they won't follow them. It's a grandiose sense of entitlement. It's basically entitlement run amok.
Okay, I'm thinking, I'm sorry, I don't do politics, but like a Donald Trump type of a person. Can I say that?
I didn't want to say that, but since you said it, I'll amen that. How about that?
I think that's a great example. Yes.
Right.
Okay,
exactly.
Thank you. So technically you can't change that. That's not changeable.
No, it can't be changed. It can be moderated.
Moderated or modified.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Moderated and modified, because they have to see severe consequences. They have to identify the severe consequences. But again, like, some people can tend to network their way around it. But again, not everybody has that skill and ability.
I'm thinking January 6th consequences. So he's still going. I got it. It's still, some people can't be changed. Okay. All right. Thank you. Do you want to share another example?
Well, another example is a gentleman by the name, and again, all these names are changed to protect the innocent. Yes. But another gentleman, which is Aaron Schwartz. Aaron Schwartz was a junior level executive that was elevated to senior level executive. Now, as a junior level executive, he seemed to be very good, very competent, very capable. But once he had the responsibility of really managing his peers, things seemed to go awry, and his peers started to think that he was intentionally sabotaging them as they go into meetings. He's consuming. He wants to be the one voice in the room. So So in the midst of working with them, they initially sent him to a executive coach without the psychological training. They worked on behaviors. They worked on all of these things. It appeared to be great.
Mm-hmm.
However, was not effective for this particular individual. And then subsequently, they find somebody like me. And in turn, I identified that he was actually suffering from the trauma of emotional neglect as a kid,
Wow.
which created for him the sense that he was not enough, that he was an imposter. He's actually inadequate. And the reasoning behind him keeping information to himself and not really wanting to cultivate anybody else is because he didn't want to be found out as an imposter, even though he's not an imposter.
Uh-huh.
It was his own sense of insecurity that created that dynamic. But
Got it.
then once I'm able to, use my 3-step process, we go through oral history, past, we deal with your history, your past history, your future, your present, to really identify what's really going on, the truth, the root of the matter. Then understanding, helping him deal with the trauma of emotional neglect, really learning how to connect to his own emotional experience and validate his own existence. Because one of the issues with children that suffer the trauma of emotional neglect, they don't matter, they don't count.
No.
What matters is the system around them. So what they do is try to fit in where they get in. They watch the system and see where to jump in, how to do this, be of service, be all of these things. And so they have an existence and they feel some sense of acceptance. But by working with him and removing that, he turned out to be an outstanding executive and still working there today, continuing on the forward trajectory.
Wow.
So these are normal life experiences. Again, we're all traumatized. So now in the world of mental health and being aware of all of the concerns and all the tragedies that have been happening of recent, I think it's time to talk about them and the validity of having the psychological training in regards to dealing with people's lives. We're taught to be excellent students. To some degree, we're taught to be professionals. We're taught to be military. But no one really teaches us how to live, how to be an effective communicator, how to connect to our own experience and our emotions. So again, we're, to a large degree, my perspective is we're an accident waiting to happen, no matter how much success we have. So if we can achieve the highest heights, there's some stumbling blocks that need to be moved out of the way. And someone with a psychotherapy background doing this type of work would be best suited to do this, particularly with me, having been 30 years in corporate America, high level managing people, owning P&Ls, facilitates me having the jargon and the intellect to be able to speak their language and utilize mental health therapeutic concepts to help them achieve the goal, which allows it to be a much more expedited process.
Great. Now, what would you say success looks like, when working with you, and, what can your clients expect from the work together with you?
Okay, so working with me is really a 3-step process where we do the discover. We discover. Basically, I'll work we'll kind of take a personalized journey through your past, your present, and what your future hopes, dreams, desires are, what your deepest desires are. Then we'll be able to cultivate that, because through the discovery, we're able to pull out strengths, nuggets. It doesn't matter what the experiences you had in life, whether challenging or optimistic, but to identify the strengths, the barriers that are hindering your trajectory and your success. Then the third step is to perform, is to actually take what you're gaining out of the office and do some practical application in society, in the workplace, in your family. And then we refine that process as you're executing. I'm walking with you to refine the process, to go back through the interactions and the dynamics and assess your performance, and ultimately help you connect to your truth and start speaking from a true impact experience as opposed to an intellectual processing of an experience. Because when I process the impact, when I activate and when I communicate, it's a diluted signal. But if I give you the purest of signal, I will actually show up authentic and actually end up where I want to go.
Got it. And so ultimately you say, go ahead. You customize each individual program, obviously, for everyone based on their goals and their wants and their makeup.
Right, because even though we're in a society of, everything's homogenous, it's not. We're a unique, eclectic salad bowl where everybody has a nuance. So by meeting with the individuals, I can create a unique program for them that's specialized and customized to their success. In that, they're learning conflict resolution. They're learning how to create effective work-life balances, how to no longer self-sabotage, and to learn out-of-the-box thinking, learning to think more abstractly, and also most importantly, validate their own experience and their truth, and not look for outward affirmation, but gain the internal acceptance of self, which will provide emotional security.
Got it. Perfect. And then we're skipping our break today. Don't worry about taking a break, Todd. Just remind our listeners how we can reach out to you, all the forms of contact.
Yeah. Well, you can reach out to me at toddmalloy.com. You can reach out to me at Todd Malloy on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. And also you can feel free to reach out to me at innerpeacecounselingcenter.com or at 704-937-2286.
All right. So we're discovering, cultivating, performing. And now let's talk a little about office politics. How does that sound? Are we up to that part yet, and how we can navigate that successfully? Did you have anything else to share before we go into that topic for today?
Yeah, no, all is well, all is well. First, before we get started, I'd like to really define what office politics is. Office politics refers to a complex social structure of a workplace. It involves employees using their authority, power, and delegation for their own personal agenda. I think that's important to highlight. Even though we're all working for one company, we're all there for different means, motives, and they may not always be congruent with what you think or what you feel is important and significant to you. Again, within a microcosm of any organization, everyone plays a different role, whether you realize it or not. Company politics determine who has power and influence. Business politics is basically social dynamics. It's about understanding how people are impacted, how you impact others, how you interact with them, but also picking and choosing battles successfully. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Now, with all of those dynamics, and trust me, I've had over the course of 30 years and the varying things that I've done, I've encountered a lot of politics. And what it is that I'd like to give at least four tips of how to maneuver through this successfully. So first one is to really understand the formal and informal networks. The formal network is by title and position. There's a CEO, there's a vice president, there are mid-level managers, there's assembly line workers, yada, yada. However, but in that, no matter what's going on, there's also an informal network. People that have power and influence that may be beyond their title. For example, when I worked at GE, probably the most powerful guy there as far as influence was the maintenance manager that had been there 35 years. He had been there longer than anybody and had everybody's respect, including the general manager, vice president, CEO. So in the midst of building relationships, me being a new engineer, he took me under his wing, and people said, why do you spend so much time with him? It's because he gave me all of the insight of all of the players. And because he had relationships, and if I needed a favor, he would say, hey, go see XYZ. I told him to call you. Again, understanding the informal networks. Formal and informal networks is very important. Number two is build positive work relationships. No different than the gentleman, the maintenance director that I mentioned. Could be a male worker, could it be the other executives, your peers, your professional peers, and beyond. Example, one of the responsibilities I had was to transfer product from Mexico to the US. And in that, I had a lot of things I had responsibility for, but I had to buy very expensive equipment. However, I had a relationship with the chief financial officer. Yep. Even though we're business, nobody could get to him. However, our kids played soccer together. So obviously, we're on the side of the soccer field. It's about maintaining a relationship that I built in the office, seeing him in a different place, and say, oh, by the way, since we're here talking, and because I had already introduced myself, we already had a working relationship. For me to be on the soccer field and say, can I meet with you on Monday to talk about a proposition and a proposal, the turnaround time, the equipment will pay for itself, facilitated me accomplishing goals and actually getting a business development award as a result of it. It's about building positive relationships. Again, because that works, it helps. Three would be third would be keep it professional. Business is business. It is not personal.
Mm-hmm.
When interaction and meeting conflict, being concerned, being challenged, is stick with the facts. Do not allow your emotions to take over. What it is be factual. On this date, this happened. Based on this email that says these things, and you connect all of these things together, when you present your case, it's hard to argue. It's hard to refute. But when you put your emotions in it, it can disrupt it. You know, it goes back to a Toddism. The one who controls your emotions controls you. If you don't control your emotions, you're out of control. How many times have you been in the workplace and seen people just become irate? But what impact does that have? How does that impact their power? How does that impact their influence? Fourth would be developing soft skills, understanding motivation, understanding how to motivate, having a level of compassion, and being able to persuade. Those are the soft skills, but that also includes learning the soft start of communication. So I may not agree with what you're saying, Jill, but instead of saying, Jill, you're wrong, or no, that's not right, we got to do something else. What I'm going to do is say, Jill, help me understand what you're saying here. My perspective of what you're saying is this. How accurate is that? You give me your input. Okay, that was accurate. Okay, hey, this is my challenge. I'm kind of concerned. I had these thoughts when you were talking. My thoughts are, now what it is I, as opposed to putting that person under attack or allowing them to feel judged, now I put themselves in a position to be a helper to help me think through this so you can clear up any confusion I have about what you're saying. Meanwhile, I've already planted seeds for what my truth is, and the other people in the room says, hey, that's a good idea, and they begin to build on the thought. Soft skills, soft start. That makes sense?
Soft start. I like it. Absolutely. It makes total sense.
You know, in the midst of, and another thing I think is very important in regards to another tip I'd like to leave is, it's important to understand the importance of emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is really, there are 5 keys to it. It's about self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, and social skills. It's being able to connect to the present moment and understand the abstract dynamics of what's going on in the moment, such that you're always relevant and that your presentation is always appropriate to the environment at the time and who you're talking to. Does that make sense?
Clearly does.
Exactly. So again, also, I think it's important. I was talking to a gentleman about this earlier today, is speaking up for yourself. You know, this is true. There was a woman I was working with here in Charlotte that has been with the corporation 15 years, progressing very well. She's in her 50s now, ready to be on the board of directors. She was just recently told that she will never be a board of directors member, which devastated her, actually. So she's leaving the company. However, they told her why. They said, we've never actually heard your voice. You've actually been so agreeable through this whole process, and to be on the board of directors, you have to be willing to make hard choices and create conflict at times. And you've actually never done that. You've never argued, you've never fought for your position. So therefore, your history, even though we've had success for this particular role, we need to see a part of you we've never seen, and we're not going to take the risk. Use your voice. You matter. You matter. No different than it's by understanding the soft skills, the soft start, because most people don't want to interject for whatever angst they have internally. I don't want to speak out of turn. What if I'm wrong? No, this is a brainstorming session. This is about a collective intellectual property. If you don't throw your hat in the ring, how do you exist?
Yeah.
That fair?
Absolutely is. And we still have 4 minutes left. So just want to make sure we're getting to everything. Go ahead.
Correct. Yeah, and I have one is also
Yep.
maintain a positive outlook. At which point, there used to be a Dunkin' Donuts commercial years ago. Time to make the donuts.
I love that one.
But oh no, I did too. I still say it sometime. But if you actually pick up that mindset when you go to work, that has an impact on how you perform. It has an impact on how you present. So if you're not keep a positive disposition, that resonates. Remember, emotional intelligence is real. People can tell if you're happy, you're sad. Energetically, you show up in a room negative, that does have an impact. So it's important to be where you want to be, position yourself how you want to be. So you show up with a positive disposition. Do you want to work with a gloomy Gus, or do you want to work with somebody that wants to be there? That fair?
Oh yeah. I want to be with people that are work like-minded, ready to go, mindsets together, making those donuts.
Right, exactly. Those that understand when you win, we all win together.
Yeah.
So I want you in your best light. I want to show up and be a true team member. I want to contribute. So when comes bonus time, I don't get shorted.
Yeah, very true.
Then I can handle my own personal agenda after we collectively become successful, because we take the spoils and then we take them to our own homes to do what we want them to do.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
I agree. Todd Malloy, 2 more minutes, so I don't know which else you want to get in.
Well,
before.
one of the questions I'll ask. You mind if I ask a question?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Cool. Okay. Why would someone that is successful really want a life and business strategist? Right. The reason being why you want someone is that no matter how successful you are, we're a growth-minded society.
We don't see our mind stops at a certain I'm pointing my head for you.
Right. Because remember, you're born, you go to college, you get married, you raise kids, you die. No, that's not. No, remember, like as I always say, life is dynamic. It's always changing. It's always expanding. And if you're not growing, you become irrelevant. It's like these thriving companies. Motorola used to be the #1 electromechanical company in cell phone business and so forth. But then you turn into the cash cow. You become so comfortable that then you have a Nokia come in and jump up and take your place because you begin to rest on your laurels. You always have to push and thrive. So even though people are successful, like a Jack Welch, who was a historic CEO of GE, for years he had a consultant. I believe, I can't think of his name right now. Ram Charan, excuse me. Ram Charan was his consultant. And he was so good as a consultant, when Jack retired, his severance bonus was $417 million.
What?
To leave, to say bye, thank you.
Wow.
Right. We always talk about success teams. If we're talking about a success team, when would you not want a success team around you? That makes sense?
Absolutely.
So that's why successful people want to coach. Even if we think about it from a religious standpoint, religiously, many books, and I took one book, many books says, seek wise counsel. Why would we not do it then? If religiously we're saying it, secularly we identify the successes, why not we just add that, stack the deck of life to our favor?
Stubbornness, thinking we know it all, maybe ego, that type of thing, but you can't grow. You can't grow alone. I believe in that. Teamwork makes the dream work, Todd. That's my ending for today's show.
Excellent. No, but it's true. Very true.
And how can we reach out to you to hire you, to work with you for a consultation? Please give us your details.
Yeah, you can reach out to me at toddmalloy.com. You can also subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can reach out to Todd Malloy on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You can also find me at innerpeacecounselingcenter.com, or feel free to reach out to us at 704-937-2286. 2286.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for handling me and speaking a lot, so I didn't have to. And have a great Memorial Day weekend. And thank you again for the information you shared. Have a great one.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.